I'm a ranger at Jasper National Park, Alberta, Canada. This is a story about something disturbing we found while on routine patrol. The first time we heard word that there was a strange ape-like creature in the park was just under a year ago. It came from a father and daughter who claimed to be kidnapped by monks as a sacrifice to the creature, but there were inconsistencies in their story and many of the landmarks were never found. But this time there was no report. We found the landmark first. We were checking on the most northwestern part of the woods. The trails are sparse in that area, and much of it is off limits for natural restoration to take place. And after about 45 minutes of walking off trail, we discovered a cabin deep in the forest that was not built by the park staff. I was there with my colleagues, Lisa and Ron, and none of us had ever seen it before, although the last time we ventured to this part of the woods was over 3 years ago. It was, of course, illegal for civilians to build unregistered structures on national park land, and I would say on average we actually found about 2 or 3 per year that we had to demolish. But this one looked different, much more established. There were vines crawling up its side and blooming on its roof. It had clearly been there for quite some time. Its windows were hazed over, too coated with dust on the inside and dirt on the outside to see in. Ron knocked on its door and asked if anyone was inside, to no reply. The door looked beautiful, like it was carved from a single slab of solid oak. It was a shame we had to break it down. Ron was a really big guy, and he booted it near the knob several times, until at last the lock tore through the wood of the door. Lisa remained outside to intercept any potentially angry resident that might come home while we plundered. The interior smelled rich, like walking into a terrarium that had not been opened in 100 years. Moss and mold coated part of the floor near the windows. They hadn't been sealed perfectly. From the doorway, there was a small cot under the leftmost window. Under the rightmost window was a basic tub with a drain that must have led outside. There were no taps, of course. This person must have been collecting rainwater and storing it. At the back on the left, they had constructed a small, separate room that served as a bathroom. It had much the same design as a porta-potty, a board to sit on with a hole in it, and a pit dug out that was accessible from the outside. And at the back on the far right, they had a small cold cellar under the ground. It actually had a concrete foundation. They must have dragged some bags all the way out here. The place was littered with easels, painting supplies, paintings, all of which depicted dark and beautiful landscapes. It must have been an artist who chose this lifestyle for inspiration, and they certainly had talent, I'd give them that. I noticed something peculiar though the longer I looked at the paintings. Whether it was a painting of a lake, a painting of the woods, a painting of a mountain, each of them contained a dark, shaggy-looking creature. Never in the foreground, always hiding behind something like a rock or a tree. It was difficult to make out at first, but you could actually see its expression if you leaned in close. The creature in the paintings always had a bit of a dull smile. Naturally, the first place my mind went to was the report made last year. In fact, I'd never really been able to get that report out of my mind. You see, I was the one who interviewed the man, and I could tell from the tremors in his voice and the fear in his eyes that he really believed he had had a close encounter with a Sasquatch. Now, looking at this creepy, smiling, shaggy figure in the paintings, something didn't sit right with me. I felt goosebumps crawling all over my body. Oh wow, what's all this? I heard Ron's voice behind me as he had the cold cellar door open. He pulled up a large sealed Tupperware box that clacked with plastic. Inside was a camcorder with several tapes and a bunch of spare batteries to power it. Ron came over and put the box down on the cot. There were about 25 tapes in there, but only 4 of them had any labels. They were simply numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. Wow, I wonder how old this place really is. I haven't seen tapes in a long time. I muttered to myself as Ron fiddled to put the first tape into the camcorder, taking an unlabeled tape out and placing it on the windowsill. Ron had to replace the batteries, but to my surprise, the device turned on at all. It was a bit difficult to see through the haze of the old screen, but the video appeared to be a vlog. It's April 19th, 2003. This is Duncan Boone signing on for the first time. Just finally got everything into the cabin. It's been a few months of work and trudging back and forth to this spot, but I think it'll pay off. To be honest, it's a relief to have quit my day job, and I'm just really excited to be here. Be out here in nature. Maybe I'll move back to the city in a few years, but I think a couple years out here would do my heart some good. Ron hit fast forward on the tape, and it sped through another half an hour of vlog, and then a few still shots of nature. I was surprised that the tapes were as old as 2003. How had we never found this place before? I guess the woods really is big and dense, and even if we missed this place by 500 meters, it's easy to see how he wouldn't have seen it. What did he say his name was? Duncan Boone? Yeah, I think so, Ron said as he shuffled to take out the first tape and slide in the second, and again on the screen popped the gruff but handsome-looking face of Duncan Boone. The date is April 23rd, 2003. So, I wanted to record this video because I was out hunting today with the bow and arrow, and I had a deer in my sights. I made a good approach, and I had a good shot lined up. The deer definitely didn't hear me, but something spooked it. It actually turned towards me for a moment, and then seeing me, darted off to the right, as though it was between me and something else. I couldn't see what it was looking at, and I got out my binoculars. And deep into the distance I did see something that looked odd. It looked like the size of a moose, or even taller, but it was covered in fur. It was moving between the trees, but they were so tightly packed that I couldn't get a good look at it. Anyway, I found an elk later and that worked out, so can't complain. Ugh, my latrine pit's getting kinda full. Guess I should probably empty that out. Ron hit the fast-forward button on the tape again, and in silence we watched Duncan Boone's face contort as he continued his testimony. Then more shots of nature. I looked over at Ron, who didn't seem to think anything of what Duncan had just said. "Do you think it's the Sasquatch?" I asked. "Pfft, yeah, maybe." Ron wasn't a believer. He simply popped in the third tape and hit play, to a much more noticeably distraught Duncan Boone. Hey, it's Duncan. It's April 25th, 2003, and it's been about 2 days since my last video log. That thing that I saw behind the deer, I thought it was a moose. Definitely wasn't a moose. It seems to be some sort of ape-like creature. It looks kind of like a gorilla, but it stands too upright. Anyway, ever since I first saw it, I now keep seeing it. It just keeps showing up wherever I go, but never overtly. It's always in the distance. I don't know how it's finding me, but whenever I'm out painting, I see it, and there it is, watching me. I almost need my binoculars. It just appears as a splotch. It's so far away. But then every time I pull up my binoculars, it's looking right at me. It always knows where I am. And how is it even able to see me? Its eyes must be incredible. And it always has this creepy fucking smile on its face. I don't know why. I don't know what it wants. If it's gonna attack me, why doesn't it just do that? Anyway, I'm pretty good with my bow, and if it got close enough I would shoot it in the eyes or the neck. But it feels like it almost knows to stay out of my range. I don't know. I guess it's fine for now. I gotta go collect water. Every hair on the back of my neck stood on end as I listened to this recording. On the tape, which Ron was fast-forwarding through, I could see a large boulder set up next to some rain barrels, where Duncan obviously collected his water. I recognized that spot as being about 10 meters away from the right window from the door. Oh my god, it really is the Sasquatch, I said out loud. Ron just looked at me and rolled his eyes. He painted it, you know, over and over again. What? Ron sneered at me, and I took him over to the paintings to look in the background where the Sasquatch's creepy smile appeared in ink. Must have lost his mind. I don't know how Ron was so confident in his skepticism, but a sense of dread was really building in my heart as Ron popped in the 4th tape and hit play. It followed me home. I don't know how it found out where I live. I guess it must have followed me. There's no other way. It's by my rain barrels. I can't get out. I don't know what to do. If I leave, it's behind the rock. Sorry, I know I'm not making sense. The camera footage was shaky, and it wasn't Duncan showing his own face. He was standing at the window just above the makeshift tub, looking out at the boulder where I knew the rain barrels to be. He's hiding because he knows I'm watching him, but he's there. He's there. If I go to try to get water, he'll kill me. I just know it. I just know it. Here, I'll show you. I'll step away from the window, and he'll probably show up. Duncan did just as he said he would, and sure enough, a shaggy, brown figure with the creepiest, flattest smile you've ever seen appeared. The expression on its face was incredibly human. Well, not just any human. It was the expression of a serial killer, licking his chops and stalking its prey. The creature actually looked more like an orangutan than a gorilla in terms of its fur length, color, and the shape of its face. But again, there were features of its face that were way too humanoid, and it was indeed massive. It had to crouch down just to stay behind that 8-foot-tall boulder. Duncan appeared in the frame. He had come outside and taken his bow with him. He was screaming profanity at the creature, who slinked back behind the boulder with the same calm smile. It must have seen the bow and slinked behind the boulder, knowing that Duncan would have to come around it into its range to shoot it. It clearly had a fearsome intelligence. Duncan on the video made the right call and retreated back inside when it disappeared. I hope you saw it. I hope you know I'm really not fucking around here. It's too smart. It won't give me an opening. It's just stalking me from a distance, and I don't know how I'm supposed to collect food when it's just going to be near me at all times. I think it actually drank my rain barrels. I think it knows that's my only source of water. It knows that I'll have to confront it if it stays there. The tape cut off, and Ron and I just sat in silence. I could feel now that Ron was just as afraid as I was. After seeing the creature with his own eyes on tape, he was forced to accept that there was a possibility the Sasquatch was real. I could see a slight trembling in Ron's hands as he slipped in the last unlabeled tape, the one that had been in the camcorder. My whole body clenched as he hit play, but the video was pitch black. I listened carefully. The fear in Duncan's voice was palpable, and I felt it myself even watching that black-screened video. Duncan had stopped talking, but the video just kept going. It seemed to be raining in the background, and there was distant thunder. And about 5 minutes into the tape, lightning flashed, revealing the face of the Bigfoot, a meter away. Sure enough, right outside the window above Duncan's cot, pressed against the glass. It was looking for him in the pitch-black cabin. Ron managed to pause right as the lightning struck, and the expression on the monster's face was terrifying. It was an open-tooth grin with very human-looking teeth, but with the same dead stare behind its eyes that made you think its smile was fake, almost as though it knew how creepy it was, and it just wanted to torment him further. "Oh my God," Ron said under his breath. "All right, let's get the fuck out of here," I replied. "I'll carry the box of tapes. Yeah, fair enough. I think that finding Duncan is gonna have to be a job for the RCMP. Just mark the coordinates of this place down on your GPS. We'll have to come back to demo it, and try to squeeze some of those smaller paintings into the box too. We'll take them with us. True. Lisa can probably carry some paintings, right Lisa? Lisa? I called outside, but she didn't reply. Ron and I looked at each other, both with an expression of sheer terror on our faces. We rushed outside, but there was no sign of her. We both called out to her repeatedly, scanning the forest in every direction, but we weren't able to see anything. Then, the boulder caught my eye, the same one from the video that Duncan kept his rain barrels behind. Ron saw me staring at it and found the balls to take the lead. I followed close behind him, not wanting to leave him be, but I was too afraid to approach it on my own, even though I knew it was unlikely that we would actually see something there. But we did. As we started to round the boulder, we saw that same light brown shaggy fur. It was turned away from us and was emitting wet, eating noises. Its hands were pressed up against its mouth like it was voraciously eating something large. "Hey!" Ron yelled at it. I couldn't believe it. Had he not just seen the video? The Sasquatch turned around to look at us. For a split second I thought Ron caught it off guard. I thought we would see it surprised. But no, this had all been a show. It grinned with Lisa's blood dripping down its chin. Her neck, head, and right arm hung out of its mouth, and there was a glazed look in her eye. She was already very dead. I turned and ran as fast as I could back through the forest to where I knew the trail was. Ron was standing there like he intended to fight it, and I had no intention of following him to the grave. I looked behind me to see the creature stand on its hind legs. It was about 12 feet tall, and it then began lumbering towards Ron. Ron finally realized he had been an idiot for standing there so long and turned to sprint in the same direction I did, although now he was smart, running through the densest part of the woods so the creature would have a more difficult time with its size. For some reason it refused to just swallow the rest of Lisa. Why did it insist on having her hanging out of its mouth? It was actually slowing it down. I made it back to the path with a sigh of relief, knowing that I'd be able to run about twice the speed. But just before Ron could make it, he tripped. I felt my blood pressure spike through the roof as I watched him scramble to get back up, but it was too late. The Bigfoot stomped on the back of his left leg, crushing it. I was unarmed. I realized it was over. I buried my guilt so easily for fear of my own survival and sprinted down the path as Ron screamed. Bigfoot was just playing with him, letting him scramble away a bit and then dragging him back by his bad leg. It flipped Ron over and slapped him in the face with Lisa's distended arm, smushing the face of her corpse against his. It held Ron's head between its hands, and Ron's screams changed pitch as the monster applied pressure. I stopped watching. I didn't want to see it. It was just like that man reported last year. The creature was real after all. I couldn't believe it was real. Hey guys, thanks for listening to that story. When I first made the Sasquatch story, I was not expecting it to do as well as it did on YouTube, and so I decided to write kind of a sequel, although I think that you can listen to this even if you haven't listened to the first one. Kind of running out of folklore monsters that I want to do stories about. There are a few more ones from like Japanese and European folklore that I could get into, but I might start to peter those out. I might do sort of dark gods from European mythology, things like that, writing stories about that type of thing, and I'm also considering doing a longer form story, like writing an e-novel on YouTube that will be about sleep paralysis demons and whatnot. So you can look forward to that in the near future, probably. But that's it for this week. Next week, there'll be a new story, whatever it is. And also tune in on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Nightmare Theater, an open book club for nightmares. Until next time, embrace the beautiful dark.